Okay, so let me start out by saying the YouTubers in their 20s are real life people. Okay, I wouldn't underestimate any of them, and we can learn a lot from them. Hey, everybody, I am going to take a few minutes to answer some of your questions. I get quite a few emails from you guys, and I really appreciate all of your emails. And many of the questions I get in email are pretty much the same questions. So the first few I'm going to tackle are from a viewer named John. Thank you so much. The first question from John is, what advice would you give to someone looking to move to Thailand in 5 to 10 years? Any things to really leverage, focus on, take advantage of before making the move? Let me start out by saying that Mark and I are not long term planners. And let me give you a couple of examples. In 2020, when I stopped working, I was originally planning to be off work for the months of June and July. But as soon as I was off work, I kind of knew this was it. I wasn't going back. And that was during the very beginning of COVID, that first chaotic year, and all of travel was shut down. And we were thinking, okay, we have 2 months to kind of figure out a plan because we didn't want to be left in our current living situation without my income, without the extra income. It would have gotten us into a lot of trouble. So basically, we had limited options. I can remember looking at FlightAware, looking at what places were landing flights. I mean, everything was shut down, but we needed to go somewhere. We didn't want to move in with family, and we didn't want to continue our expensive living situation on the reduced income because it just wasn't feasible. So I can remember looking at FlightAware, like I said, looking at places over in Asia to see where flights were landing, just caught up in all of this research. We knew there were flights landing in Cambodia, and we even went so far as to drive up to Los Angeles and go to the Cambodian embassy. And we actually got a visa for Cambodia. It was really easy to obtain at that time. So we thought, okay, that's an option. But we really weren't ready to take that option because of all of the uncertainty in the pandemic, we didn't want to get that far away from home. And then it occurred to us magically that we could simply go to Mexico. Flights were going into Mexico. It was business as usual, somewhat. In Mexico, things were shut down, but you could get in and you could get situated. So that's what we did. That was a 2 month plan. In that 2 months, we sold all of our possessions. We got ourselves temporary residency visas to Mexico. We had a consulate in San Diego. And so we were just able to do all of that in a short period of time. Again, when we decided Mexico wasn't it for us at that time and we wanted to move forward with plans to go to Portugal, again, the world is still shut down. We could not fly, we could not get entry at this point to anywhere in Asia. But Portugal had started redoing the visas in early 2021. So from Mexico, we came back to the US. We stayed with our family while we got those visas. And as soon as those visas were approved, we took off for Portugal in May of 2021. That was a 3 month plan of getting those visas and just waiting for them to be approved. While we were in Portugal, and we decided that wasn't it for us, and we had many more options because the world was opening up again. And this was towards the end of 2022. We knew something wasn't quite right, but we couldn't quite put our fingers on it, but we just weren't feeling like Portugal was it for us. And I have a video about it if you want to hear about it. But we kind of decided towards the end of July, and then we knew our lease that we were in for our apartment. We were in a 3-year lease, but the laws in Portugal allow you to discontinue a lease after you've been in that lease for 1/3 of the time, basically. So we knew at the 1-year point we had an option to ditch that lease. So pretty much we had a month to decide, okay, yes, let's look into the visas for Thailand. Let's talk to the Thai embassy in Lisbon. Let's talk to our landlord when we have our plan of what we're doing and let them know this is what we would like to do. The lease says we need to give this much notice. Here's what we're prepared to do. Again, everything is a negotiation. But my point is that was like 6 weeks. And 6 weeks later, we were here in Bangkok. So long range planning is not something we're very good at. Even before COVID, the BC times, as we like to call them in my family, we were not long range planners. The longest range plan we ever had was when we went back to school together and had to plan out 2 years of courses. So a 5 to 10 year plan, quite honestly, is something in life that I have never had. What I would advise you long range planners and anyone really, if you're planning to move abroad, find out what your why is. Why do you want to move abroad? Number 2, have a few different options. If the last few years has taught us anything, it's taught us that things can change on a dime. Things can change quickly. What is true today is not necessarily going to be true in 5 years or 10 years. You can ask anybody who has lived in country X 5 or 10 years ago how that country is different today. I got to tell you, there's nothing more annoying than reading Facebook posts in these boomer groups I belong to. And I'm not a boomer, and I can see why boomers annoy young people, because lately there have been a lot of posts about, oh, I traveled to this place in X year and I just went back and I can't believe how much it's changed, blah, 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 blah. Now, I personally find that annoying because basically what these people are saying that do posts like that, do they really expect the world just to stay the same? The world is continually evolving. Places are continually evolving. So just because they had a certain experience at a place 20 years ago, it doesn't mean that the people that are going to that place today aren't enjoying it. It's just annoying, and it's usually said about places located in developing countries. And the whole point of a developing country is to develop, right? I mean, why are people having issue with progress? But everyone views progress differently. I've digressed on this question, but it's just something that I've seen come up over and over. So just know that in 5 to 10 years, the Bangkok that you enjoy today is probably going to be different down the road. I mean, my first trip to Bangkok was 10 years ago, and I have to say, in my eyes, everything is pretty much the same. It's still a big city. It's a thriving city. It's quite cosmopolitan in a lot of areas, and the historic, the cultural, you can find the cultural aspects pretty much around any corner if you look for them. But you can also find that progress, that development. And I just get really, it just irks me a little bit that people would, it just irks me a little bit that people would talk poorly of an area that's become developed when those people think it shouldn't, or think it should stay the same. I mean, do these same people think we should be driving horses and buggies in the West? I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I'm sorry to go on about it, but it is. It's just ridiculous. It's a little bit elitist, and I just don't think it really has any place in the world of travel. I mean, these are people that are supposedly well-traveled, this, that, and the other. It really, it just comes off as elitist and annoying. Okay, that's my little rant about that. So just keep in mind, in 5 to 10 years, your dream place may no longer be your dream place. I say this all the time. Life is like a buffet. You have to get that dish when it's out there in the buffet, because they might not replace it later and you'll have missed your favorite dish. So that's really my advice for the long-term planners. Have a few options open. If you haven't traveled to many places, try to figure out how to do that, because you might really love a place that people aren't really talking about. Bangkok is a really hot topic right now, a hot destination to travel. And so, of course, many people want to travel here, but that might not be the case in 10 years. The next question from John is, how much do you think about finances, making money, the economic parts of living abroad? Okay, I am somebody that thinks about finances all the time, but I have always been that way. So my first thing I would say to you is, how do you think about finances now? How do you treat your finances now? Because pretty much you're going to have the same expenses when you move abroad. They're probably just going to be different amounts, but you're still going to be responsible for all of the same expenses, and they might be paid in different ways. For example, if you're working now, your health insurance might come from your employer. You might get it deducted off the top of your pay every month. Well, you're still going to be responsible for your health insurance coverage when you move abroad. But back to me, do I think about finances? Yes, I think about finances all the time, because that's how I've always been. The difference is I haven't really fully adjusted my thinking to this living on a decreased income. And I've talked about this in past videos, but really it's something that I'm really trying to examine and really work on going forward in the future, now that we've been at this for a little while. And what I mean is, when I was working, you're always going to count on a certain amount of money coming into your bank account every month. And so even though we had really high expenses, there was a lot of leeway we had because our income was pretty good. And so if we wanted to do something, it was very easy to make adjustments, because, we'll just spend a little less this month, and then next month we can go on this really cool trip. I mean, you can do that when you have that kind of income. And so that's pretty much the thinking and how we've lived our whole lives. Not that I was making that amount for our entire lives, but in these last several years, our income got pretty healthy. And so it was easy to spend a little less one month and you could spend way more the next month, but the amounts that you were spending were still pretty healthy. Are you following me? So now with our reduced income, our reduced budget that we work with every month, I still have a little bit of that. Oh, if we just reduce a little here, we can spend more here. And it's really not the same when your overall pot is smaller. And so that thinking is something that I'm working on changing. And it's part of my thinking about finances. Now, do I think about making money? Yes, I think about making money, but I don't make any money. A few times over the past couple of years, I've thought about getting a part-time online position, doing something, but then I come to my senses and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that because I love the freedom of just doing whatever I want. And truth be told, we have plenty of money to live. We're just not very frugal, and we really haven't developed those retirement people habits yet, but we're working on it. And so, yes, I'm always thinking about money. I'm always worrying about money. I'm always thinking of ways, okay, how can we save here? Are we paying too much for our health insurance? Is this sustainable for how many more years moving forward? We still have a few years before I am eligible for Social Security. And if we had to live the rest of our lives on our income that we bring in now, we probably could do it, but we really haven't learned those limitations to live on that amount of money yet. But it is something that is a continual work in progress. And yes, it is something that I'm always worried about. And it's simply because of our habits of how we lived in our past life. So if you're someone who's preparing for retirement and you're not going to reduce your income at all from what you're making while you're working, that is a beautiful thing and you won't have any problems. If you're somebody who is working and earning a nice living and you're going to go to live on a reduced amount in a place where you believe you can live on a reduced amount, just know there's some adjustments that you might want to make or need to make. It's just a huge learning curve. I found not only living abroad, but being retired at the same time and just learning how to adjust to both of those. I don't think either one can be underestimated. And I feel like coming to a city like Bangkok for us was pretty easy because we've lived in big cities before. We lived in Manhattan. We know how to live in a big city. We know how to negotiate life without a car. There's just certain things you do differently and certain things you learn by being in the environment and watching how the locals navigate city life. And so we've had some experience with that. If you haven't had that experience, that's going to be a little bit more of a learning curve. But I would basically say, hey, you've got to figure out how you handle your money now and just understand you're going to be responsible for all those same things living abroad. That part is not different. I think it's just your personality and how you handle it now. That will tell how you'll handle pretty much everything, including your finances, once you move abroad. Okay, next question. I'm not going to say who this one's from because it's almost kind of a little bit of a rude question, and you'll see what I mean. Did you and your husband sell any real estate before moving to Bangkok? I asked just to get an idea of what real life people go with versus all the YouTubers in their 20s. Ooh. Okay, so let me start out by saying the YouTubers in their 20s are real life people. Okay, I wouldn't underestimate any of them, and we can learn a lot from them. Just because they're young and on YouTube doesn't mean that they don't have assets, okay? But anywho, no, we didn't. We didn't sell any real estate before moving abroad. Okay, and I think I've been going at this for a while. The next question is, how long have you and Mark been married, and why don't we see him in more of the videos? Mark and I just very recently celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. Yes, 25 years married. Can you believe it? We can't even believe we've been married that long. And we've been together for almost 30 years, which is crazy, but it's pretty awesome. So, yes, we've been married for 25 years, and Mark has absolutely zero interest in being on YouTube. I know people like the married couple format. You see it all over YouTube. When I started YouTube, I thought we would be one of those married couple formats, but my guy is not interested. And total respect to him for that. He's like, it's not his thing. I get it. So that's why you won't see him in more videos, because he doesn't want to be. So let me know what you think about this video. If you have any questions for me, let me know in the comments and I'll do another video like this. If this ends up being my last video of 2024, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and I wish you good health, prosperity, and love in 2025. As always, thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.